we didn't have any funding. We started with $2,000 and a render. To me, part of the appeal was, wow, this thing packs a lot of value and a lot of functionality into a really small footprint.
But once we decide to go inside, like to go through the Nomad, Nomad is completely, there is two different world universe between like the two products.
Maybe if we focused the display around better time management, we could, improve people's workflows without actually changing their workflow. It's like somebody who's playing piano and they miss a couple notes. If they stop, everyone's gonna notice. If they don't stop, everyone's gonna say, wow, you played a really nice piece. Then you as the artist will be like, oh, I missed this note and I missed that note. Let's tweak it, let's polish our software, get it really right so that when we deliver it, it's a home run. And like that's what we did with the Creator Micro and people loved it. And then they're like, cool, can you do it in 2? We're like,
of course.
When Figma asks you, can you do it in 2? You say yes.
Yes, you cannot say nothing.
Man, manufacturers give you a hard time as a small company to do like a finished product. They will complain about it being too slow, about it costing too much and being all this. But I assure you, they will complain more if it's a bad product.
Welcome to the show. We have Michael, we have Mattia, and we are at the Work Louder studio. This is our first in-person episode of The Blueprint. Thank you for having me. And I love these products. I want to hear all about them. So maybe before we start in the actual products, tell me your backgrounds. I want to hear each of you, how you kind of got into creating keyboards, how you met, full story that led up to the founding of Work Louder.
Okay.
Pretty fun.
Yeah, so I'll give you the 10-year journey in like 30 seconds or as best as I can do it. So I studied all my life in pharmacology or in sciences. In university, I studied pharmacology. And I started my first startup straight out of university or like in my last year. And it was an education startup around like making practice questions. Learned a lot about like UI, UX, all self-taught. I read one book that was really good called The Mom Test. So again, all about UX. Really recommend that if you're into UX. And then from there, I ended up kind of finding like a side project, which was this pink vodka that a friend of mine was creating and needed my help with some like formulation stuff, even though I wasn't that good of a pharmacologist. Anyways, I ended up getting involved in pink vodka. And long story short, in that, when I was like redesigning the vodka label, I was thinking, hey, like, how can I optimize my graphic design like process here to like just make myself a bit more efficient? Because it was like right at the start of COVID, I was like designing on a MacBook, and like just felt like I needed something to just elevate that designing process. And that's when I stumbled across one of Mattia's renders on Instagram. Yeah. And I was like, I just instantly fell in love with it. It was a render of the creator board. And I just like totally fell in love with it. I like instantly went into the comments and was like, what's the timeline on this, Yeah. And then Mattia replied back like, oh, like in the summer, we're going to have like a prototype ready. So I like followed along on the Instagram page for 6 months. And then like,
the prototype never happened.
And so I was like so eager to get this product, even though, I didn't even know what like an ortholinear keyboard was. It's just like, I didn't even know if I could type on this thing. It just looked super cool and I needed to have it, in like November 2020, I asked him, like, hey, like, what's the status of this thing? Like, is it ready yet? And he's like, actually, I'm thinking of like shelving the whole thing and just like kind of putting it on pause for now.
Yeah.
And I literally told him no. Like, I was like so heartbroken by that. I was like,
please no.
Please no, because keep in mind, like at that period of time, like I had spent maybe 6-7 years building my last 2 startups that ultimately didn't work. They were never like truly cash flow positive. But like I learned a lot about running a business and like what people wanted. And like, here's this guy in Italy, just making a thing. And he has all these people in his comments.
Yeah, that was pretty appreciated. A lot of like organic follow-up on the product that all of them seems like wanting it. So it was pretty like bad feeling if I have just to drop it because I don't have any resources to go through. So, but luckily, Michael was so insisting to go through.
Yeah, so I was like, really, like, before you, like, go and archive your Instagram page, like, let's just hop on a Zoom call. Like, maybe there's something obvious that's blocking you, that's obvious to me, but not obvious to you. And, like, I just help you fix that. And then, like, you'll promise me a spot at the front of the line so I can buy this thing before you sell out, you know?
Yeah.
Because, like, you're going to be a millionaire one day. And so, like, he was like, okay, fine. Like, I'll hear you out. So I, like, went and, like wrote him up like a little launch strategy. And like, I maintain this idea, the better you are at writing a business plan, the worse you are at writing a business or like running a business. And I'm very shitty at writing business plans. So like, I wrote him like this like 3-page, like little plan kind of thing, around like position, pricing and like essentially marketing. And so I was like, I immediately went into the comment and was like, there's all these people that are obsessed about this keyboard like me, but like, who are these people? And like, really, like, why do they want this thing? Right. So like literally went and stalked everyone that commented on his stuff to like see like, what could I tell from their page? Like, what are they posting? What are they talking about? All that. And like figured out like, oh, like these are mainly creative people, like video editors, graphic designers, photographers, music people, a lot of music people. And I was like, okay, so like I wrote him the launch strategy. I'm like, this isn't really a keyboard company. This is like a company for creative people that just so happens to sell keyboards. Like that's how you should frame this thing. And then like pricing, I knew nothing about mechanical keyboards. I knew less than nothing about like actually making electronic hardware, and neither did he.
No. I was literally, I was in the customer side at that point because I was like a designer. So just like I had just in my head like what I want as a customer from like a product. But then I turned it from the other side, say, okay, because I cannot purchase anything that is so good for me, I'm gonna end up making it at least just for me. So that's why, for example, the creator board is completely different from like a regular staggered because it's ortholinear. So it's more like design oriented, but just for the shape, for the design, for the appearance, and less at the beginning because I didn't know about. For me, like why I have to go staggered if I can keep like a grid of key. That's pretty basic for me. Like
easier to design
back at the days. And I ended up figuring out that people really likes not only the design but also the idea behind of it. Like to augment like the productivity, and that's why I approached it. So I think that's a good selling point because I was a customer before then the designer. So maybe I was able to put inside of the keyboard like that kind of aspect, and that's pretty important.
In the early days, why did you think, and why did you have the confidence to go in and build a keyboard
confidence?
company?
You call it confidence.
You have Apple that's probably producing 1 billion keyboards a year.
Yeah.
You have Logitech and all these guys producing millions and millions of keyboards. They come standard with every computer.
But there's nothing for me.
Right.
So there wasn't nothing for me.
And what were the things you were looking for?
Oh, but I can tell you I tested, my wife is pretty angry about that, but I spent a lot of money on trying different like products and devices. I never find anything very suitable for me. My backstory is nowadays, before I joined it, I created Work Ladder. It was like 13 years that I was working as a designer. Started from paper, moving to web, and also doing like everything that is related to UI, UX. So I moved literally from paper because I was making like books, like literally cutting paper and doing that kind of stuff and printing, to like web and then everything that is web related. And while I was working, every time I'm purchasing stuff, every time I just like doing refund, I don't want to say that, but giving away what I'm purchasing because I don't feel comfortable with that. And then I can use my like free time to go through like learning a little, just set like a macropad because before the creator board, I was looking to primarily designing a macropad. And that's literally like the natural evolution is the creator micro of that concept. I went building, designing, I feel it very comfortable and I say, okay, I know I can go through that in a sort of way, not because I primarily know how to design it, because I didn't know about 3D modeling, rendering. That was pretty like it was the 2018, so like that was literally the creation of work louder in my mind, and not on paper. And I went through say, okay, I keep that as a side project just for me. But one, like the thing starts happening, like the COVID. I was working on a design company. I just decided to left it because I don't feel it comfortable inside that company. But at the same time, I have still having like a good job as a 3D modeler, beginning 3D modeler in a city called Wuhan in China. That was the ground zero of the of the pandemic. So yeah, I quit and then I lost a job at the same time, the same day, and I feel at home like a lot of time because I was forced about having time, and I started like playing around with Rhino. Back in the days, I was literally like looking at the YouTube tutorial to go through Rhino
This is
servers.
like the worst one for you to start.
Yeah, I can no, but like people are fancy, they go with Blender, that kind of stuff. So I prefer like if I set like a 1 millimeter, have to be 1 millimeter. I'm pretty like I need to the security of the tool behind. Started like modeling, and I was literally sitting in a McDonald's like at 9:30 p.m. Like pretty alone because I was living far away from my friends, and then I say, okay, maybe I can start designing, developing like a brand behind this idea, and that time comes out Work Louder as primary name, and
9 p.m. in a McDonald's.
yeah, 9 p.m. at McDonald's. I still have like the initial sketch of it, and I think that it was like maybe that week. I don't remember now the correct time frame, but. I made the logo, and then I opened the Instagram page.
Wow.
And started like modeling after that.
So show me this first board here and talk to me about what features or differences you might notice. If you're only used to a stock computer keyboard or you only use the one that comes with your laptop, what are the different features that someone might notice when they try this?
Okay, for example, as graphic designer, before like a 3D modeler, and I was working a lot with InDesign, so you have to InDesign Illustrator because you align a lot. Those tools, seems not you can do whatever, but you are ending up aligning stuff a lot. And for example, having the ability to have a inline macro pad that you can set up and program each key for like a specific functions. It found me like very easy going for like, okay, so that's my artboard. I know that instead of doing like a pretty awkward macro with like leaving my mouse handle, go to the keyboard, do like a very weird macro combination, just setting to one key, I find it like, first of all, less time consuming, and then I can just focus on other things. Instead of just like spinning around with the mouse and finding the stuff. So, okay, you have to know the macro, but after you set it up, it's pretty quick, if not it's instant.
I think another thing so what drew me to this product, right? Because the first product I saw
is the design.
Yeah, it was the design. Like, as somebody that was like, again, a consumer of these products before being, involved in ownership of the brand. Yeah, it was, I was in a condo, right? Like most people, they're in a smaller apartment, like maybe their parents' spare bedroom or whatever it is. Or their spare bedroom for their office. And I didn't have a lot of room, right? Like, I remember I said I was like on my laptop doing this. And so when I was like, okay, well, I want to like maybe make a more permanent setup here now in my condo, I literally had a 48-inch desk. And like, if you know anything about desk sizes, that's actually really small. That's like this, like that's actually a really small desk to fit a monitor or a laptop and then a keyboard, mouse, macro pad. So to me, part of the appeal was, wow, this thing packs a lot of value and a lot of functionality into a really small footprint. Like you can take this keyboard, put it on top of a MacBook Air keyboard, and it's the same size as the MacBook Air keyboard.
Yeah.
Huh.
And this has the functionality of like a full keyboard plus a macro pad, and it has all of these extra, knobs and dials on it that you can program to whatever you want. Like that was a dream come true to me, So that's like really what drew me to this product. And I also really liked the idea that it was modular, meaning like it future proofs this for me. You know, like again, like it was COVID, like times were like tough, like money wise. I wanted something that like I could tweak and change with my journey of being a, you know, a self-taught designer essentially, you know, because I went to school for pharmacology and do graphic design. I didn't, you know, have a job in graphic design.
Yeah.
I was just doing all this like from YouTube tutorials, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So like that compact aspect and then the modularity like really sold me on that. Even though I had no idea how to type on a 40% keyboard.
Yeah.
Ortholinear.
But funny enough is, it comes to my mind like the idea, because in my head, my first real product was the micro that it comes later in the year. It was like don't stop with one single product, like in using one product, but evolving in more additional products, because you can literally swap, you can unscrew, swap, just rotate across of the bottom plate. There is a lot of like screw points that you can change the physical layout of it. If you are like if you use your right hand or your left hand, you can just like decide to move the parts.
It's modular.
It's more you can flip it around. But also because it's a creator board, you still like in that kind of mentality that you can create to yourself what you want. And basically having like a 3D printer that back in the days, everybody got like a clone of a Prusa, like a Anet 3D printer. They can print whatever and just customize and make it for themselves a more handy product that they can suit for themselves in a better way.
Very cool. Talk to me about the feedback from customers on this first keyboard and how that led to the next keyboard.
Okay, so
I think I can take that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go.
So in Work Louder, I'm the one that really does the front facing stuff.
Yeah.
So like speaking to the customers, getting the feedback, doing all like the marketing aspect of it. So for me, it served two purposes: to be really close with the customers, and like make products essentially for ourselves as our customers, you know, because we're essentially scratching our own itch by making this kind of thing, you know, because prior to the creator board, it was like, if you wanted a macro pad or like something that had macros on it, you had to buy something gamer oriented.
Yeah.
And, you know, as like designers or people that really appreciate, you know, like a refined design language, the whole gamer aesthetic doesn't quite nail that, you know. It's for gamers, right? And like, not to say that creators aren't gamers, but it didn't feel like there were any products for us. So the original feedback was like that people were really excited to have a product now that was developed for them as a creator, somebody that wanted something aesthetic but also useful. You know, like there was no reason why those two aspects couldn't coexist. But then, you know, when we launched the creator board, I pushed Mattia to do the creator board mainly because I was like, well, I want this.
Yeah.
I'll be real. Like, I want this thing, you know? But also I was like, I don't know, like, how many people will understand what a macro pad is. And it might be like a barrier to entry for us, you know? So I was like, okay, let's make the keyboard and then go from there. And so, you know, like we knew nothing about making this thing. So we had to like find all the suppliers, and literally I was like, Mattia, what's this? Okay, Mattia, what's this? He's like, well, I think we need a mold for that. That's a circuit board. So we need a circuit board manufacturer for that.
CNC a few stuff. So.
Yeah, well, like CNC, and I'm like, what CNC? And he's like, what is it? Computer enumerated cutting or something, you know? So I was like, we were really learning everything from the ground up. And like, you know, like the first thing I remember like us really discussing while we were still in the design phase was, do we put a 1U or 2U keycap here, right? So like split this into two individual 1U keycaps or put a 2U. And I remember that was the first thing that we really asked our potential customers about and really inquired about, like, have you ever used a keyboard where it's essentially a split spacebar like that? And most of them was like, no. Yeah. Most of them were like, no, I like my bigger
6 unit.
6 unit, you know, space bar. And then when we looked at like the actual usage patterns of like where the wear was on like their whatever 15 or 14 inch MacBook,
This is always.
It was always like almost always smack in the center, and it was ironically the exact length of a 2U keycap.
Wow.
So I was like, that's it. Like the proof's in the pudding. Like the proof's like literally in the wear and tear. It was one of our first viral videos that we did on TikTok. It was like me, like literally people like, oh, your spacebar is too small. And like my rebuttal to that was there was no commentary. It was just like, I pick up the 2U keycap and I go and plop it right in front of my MacBook where there's the actual usage pattern of 2U right there. And I was like, that was it. Went viral.
So this second board, this is the Nomad. And if you look at it from afar, it looks just like a keyboard. But if you take a closer look, you see a display as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Talk to me about why. I don't think I've ever seen a keyboard with a display on it. I don't profess to be a keyboard expert, but it's the first time I've ever seen a display on the actual board. Why is that an important piece when the keyboard is usually being used with a big monitor with a display? So why do you need the display on the keyboard?
So if we can address the creator lineup, time is like to make you agile with your workflow, to be a little more like to make a little more easy your workflow to go through with your macro and whatever. This is like okay, you are like apparently like less key to customize as the creator board, because we give you like dedicated customizable key, but this is more like focus oriented. So still for your workflow, but that's to make you like faster access your actions, and it is to make you more conscious about the time you are spending to make good work, and to give you like a less distraction from what are you creating. So having like a display here is not only give you like a clock that is telling you at what time of the day you are, because sometimes you get like you are focusing on the work, you just like blind yourself from like the outside, and you forget even to watch the tiny clock that is too tiny, I think, on the computer, and maybe you get lost. So at least you have like a little track to see between you and the computer where you are, like not only at what point, but physically where you are. And on top of that is like the main feature that we spent a lot for our marketing, and also like let's say, advice.
You want me to back it up a little bit? Say how we got from the creator board to here?
As you want, yeah.
Yeah, because I think that there's a lot of value in that too.
Yeah.
So essentially, we launched the creator board. We're like, people are really interested about it. Price point, a little too high for most people.
And also the curve, like the learning curve for the linear was a little step for.
So like we're all the while, like so from essentially 0 to 8 months, we launched the creator board and we're shipping it to customers. And we're getting feedback. Oh, it's difficult to type on, but once you get the hang of it, it's all right. But the learning curve is really tough. I wish it was just staggered instead of ortholinear, right? So we're getting all of this feedback. Mainly it was around price point. So we're like, okay, well, we want to provide the utility, but, do this in a way where we're not going to like, diminish our brand value or like ruin our product pricing. So we ultimately, before we came out with the Nomad, we came out with the Creator Micro, which became like a smash hit and was what I call a business card product.
Yeah.
So it's not like a term like you'll find in like a business book or anything. It's like literally a made up term that I came up with. So a business card product is essentially, it encapsulates all of your like brand value or utility of your core product offering, and then just packages it into like a smaller product that you can, like a business card, just kind of like hand out. It's like almost, it's as easy as handing out a business card. It tells you everything about your product. And like, you'll see other companies, larger companies, use the same like product playbook. They won't call it a business card product, but like, I'll give you an example. Nothing. They were like very much phone oriented, right? Carl Pei, like coming from OnePlus, like that's a very phone oriented, like founder, but they didn't start with a phone. They actually started with what I would call a business card product, which was their earbuds, their headphones, something that communicates their brand like values, their design language, their utility, all in like a small product that's literally easy to hand out and get into people's hands. We started the opposite way because we had different constraints than compared to nothing. Like we didn't have any funding. We started with $2,000 and a render. and no experience building hardware.
Yeah.
So, we started with a more expensive product to build up some cash and then like prove out like that our, brand, our products are interesting. And then we came out with a business card product to like really push our, our like essentially our products out. So we came out with this, but it still didn't resolve the fact that people wanted a keyboard from us that had the same utility as the creator board, but easier to type on, a little lower price point, had like different things. People are like, oh yeah, it was funny. Like I didn't really bug me so much, but it like one of the most things that we got comments about was that they didn't like this little square not being used. Like it really irked people that there was like what's the dimensions for this?
Oh yeah, they asked me for the CAD file for just making like a random stuff.
Yeah, but this is like what here? I can pull the.
Oh,
I can pull the ruler off here. Example here. So like
you can use insoles.
Yeah, so you got inch or centimeters. So this is like essentially like here. I'll use centimeters to make it a bit more accurate. So we got like a 35 by 35 little square piece here, and like that was like irking people.
Yeah.
Like they were like, what can I put there? And we're like, okay. And so people were like, oh, there should be a display there. There should be a display. And like literally for a year, people were commenting on that.
Yeah.
To the point,
like, display on it.
To the point, a customer, so this was a customer that made this board.
And
I purchased it from him. Yeah, because like I was literally like, that's so cool. And then at one point he was like, oh, I need to sell this because I'm, buying another one of your products or whatever. And I was like, I need to have this. So I bought it off of him. But essentially he put like a Raspberry Pi?
He put like a Raspberry Pi underneath and a LCD, like a LCD display on top to just like show images.
Yeah.
Like PNG. Yeah.
And so he oriented it like this, and we were like, wow, like that's really cool. And people loved this. They were like, he made a whole guide on how people could build this, but I'm like, people aren't gonna go through that. Like maybe some people will, but most people won't, And I was just like, man, like, yeah, there's potential here for a display, but on this one, it only showed GIFs and it was like really choppy. So like the frame rate was like super low. So like you wouldn't really be able to show anything like super, super cool on it.
But people still looking.
But people really liked it. So we were like, okay, we need to think about how we can get a display in here, but not make it tacky. Like we're not the first people to make a keyboard with a display.
Yeah.
Actually, I think like Razer beat us by like 10 years to that whole thing. So like we are not the first people to put a display into a keyboard. Yeah. But I think like what a lot of companies, even big companies, like miss out on is like the actual purpose. Like why? Why am I doing this? And when you're a small company, you actually don't have the luxury not to know why. Like you don't have the luxury to be ignorant about why you're doing something. It just costs too much money to make something for there to be no reason. Right. So we literally started booking UX discovery calls with our current, at the time, our current backers of the creator board, but then also like prospective customers that were just like following us that answered our, hey, you want to jump on a 30-minute to an hour call with us and like just let us ask you questions, And like a lot of people signed up for it. And over the course of 6 months, I did 100 hours of UX calls with all like walks of creative life, And it's really insightful. But if you're if you're really in tune with like UX and understanding like what makes people tick, you'll often find the most valuable things are the things that they don't say but they show you. Right. And so in this context, I'd ask them like, so what are like some previous products that you've purchased? How much have you spent on them? And then they'll be like, oh, I have this and that. And I'm like, oh, awesome. Like, how do you use them in your workflow? Oh, well, I actually don't use them in my workflow. I'm like, why? And they're like, well, like, this one's a little difficult to configure, or, this one, it's just like, I already had a workflow kind of set up for that. And I'm like, interesting though, that you're like still out here looking for a productivity tool when you have some, like you have enough, like it's not like you're short on money to buy them or you don't know where to get them. And it occurred to me that like there's a few ways people can optimize their workflow, right? Like there's one where you can spend less time doing something, which is essentially the promise of a product like the Creator Micro, where it helps you optimize your workflow by like making it more efficient. So you fewer keystrokes, fewer hand movements, all that. And then also, of course, like the aspect that it's just like fun to use. And so there's like that kind of like immeasurable factor to it. But then there's the other aspect. Well, it's like, if you can save time doing something to make you more efficient, what if you're just actually more efficient with the current time that you already have, which is essentially time management. And then it made me realize, wow, like actually a lot of creators, I think the stat was, when I looked it up, 80% of creative people that identify with being a creative for their like job or side hustle also have ADHD. And people with ADHD, like myself, are notoriously bad with both time management and just like anything involving time, right? Like if it takes them time to set something up, they get discouraged very easily, and they're I'll do it later, you know? Or they'll like get super hyper focused, like what Mattia was saying, like, oh, to watch the time, you know, like that little time in the corner, you don't see it. You know, they get super hyper focused, and they spent like 3 hours on doing something that it doesn't merit 3 hours worth of your time, right? So then I was like, wow, like, you know, maybe if we focused the display around better time management, we could, you know, improve people's workflows without actually changing their workflow, which is a huge unlock. When you talk about like barriers to entry, like if you have to get somebody to learn a new product or learn a new software or set something up, that's a big barrier to entry, you know? And so like, if you can just leave everything that they do as it is, but just say like, just chop it up in this fashion, it'll be better. And when I say chop it up, it kind of goes back to like my background in sciences, where I'd have to like memorize all of these like scientific facts and molecules and stuff, being in pharmacology. And I would often get like burnout, like of studying. And so what I would do to mitigate that was I would use the Pomodoro method, which is essentially 25 minutes of work, 5 minutes of rest, and then repeat. And that way you never get into that hyper focus where you end up spending 3 hours doing something that doesn't merit those 3 hours. And then there's also the flip side of that, where if you have trouble getting into that zone of like focusing, you can just say, I just need to do this one task for 25 minutes, and then I'm going to get a break. I can go on Instagram, I can do whatever for those 5 minutes, and then restart it. And oftentimes what people will find using the Pomodoro method is they end up like just using that first 25 minutes, and then they're in their flow state, whatever that looks like for them, whether it's a 5-hour thing of being super productive, or whether it's like, oh, I'm just going to keep doing those Pomodoro sessions, you know? And then they're able to just like actually do their work properly. And so a lot of people criticized us. Oh, like your main feature, your main widget is a timer. I'm like, sorry to say, but it might not just be for you then. You know, like we're making a very purpose-driven product for a specific kind of user, which are creators, right? And you can use the Pomodoro method regardless what app.
Yeah, you can use it in your kitchen if you want to.
You know, and so the fact that it was built into the keyboard also was a really important feature, because I used to use the Pomodoro method on my phone, but I would get distracted. It's impossible. It's like you're constantly, you know, using your own willpower to not go on these other apps and just like be like, okay, I'm going to reset my new Pomodoro method, or I'm going to change the writing of the task or whatever it is, and you get distracted. So baking it straight into the keyboard just removed that possibility for distraction.
Right.
And so based on those 100 hours of UX discovery calls, we ended up coming up with, okay, needs to be staggered, easier to type on. Keeps the dials from the creator board, because people like being able to, that tactile ability of being able to change their different settings and all that. Keeps the macro buttons, because having dedicated macro buttons are easier for some reason to map, because it's not already mapped to an existing key. On the creator board, you can map everything, anything. You can map your spacebar to do something different if you wanted to. But what we found is that people weren't doing that. They were only mapping that top macro row, and then the 2 buttons on the side. So we're like, it's important to keep a dedicated macro set so that people could just map their buttons to it. They wanted something more low profile. They wanted something that had a bit of variety for the colorways, right? So like we did a ton of samples. If you want to grab the samples.
We also, we get people like the possibility to choose between like
the different colorways.
Different colorways from like so atomic is like the color that we choose for the Nomad E. but also we come out with like a little more like
Atomic
like
purple,
atomic purple. We
the
have
graphite, and then chalk, which is
We got
all
a
white.
chalk. No, I think.
And so like little feature being, again, marking this towards creators and designers is that we baked in a little ruler at the back, a magnetic ruler, so that if you need to take a quick measurement, whether it's like you're designing some stationery or you're designing a physical product, you're in a business call, you're in a meeting with your partner or a client, and you're typing something, you're like, like, what size should this be, right? Sometimes people go and grab a caliper, or they have a ruler kind of jammed in their desk drawer that they're like awkwardly trying to pull out, or the caliper, they're trying not to ding something and crack a screen because they're super sharp on the corners. This, you can just pop off the ruler from the back, take your measurement. Again, it has inches and centimeters on the back. Take that quick measurement, and then without even having to like look how you're placing it, just slide it back under and go back to typing or go back to your meeting. And it's not taking up any room. Again, like thinking about like constrained spaces, making something compact, so yeah.
And having it as well on the bottom, it's a little ridge, right? So
it's give you like a nice inclination. Yeah,
it gives like, what was it, a 5%?
That is a 5%.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you can also because there is a used rubber mat, you can also apply on top of your Mac if you maybe prefer like a mechanical instead of like the butterfly that Mac have without like scratching it. So still pretty, very comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay, now talk to me about this other board. This is the Figma creator board, and it looks very similar to the first creator board you showed.
Yeah.
But it's got Figma colors, Figma logos. Talk to me about how this collaboration came to be and what is different between that and the first creator board.
Yeah, so the Figma Micro,
it
was like literally one of those like joke daydreaming products.
Yeah.
I remember like Mattia and I were on a call and we were like, man, the Micro seems like a really great product to like do collabs with, you know, like there's a lot of little things that we can customize on it and like give it a different flair, right? So like the two, the stock version being the black one that I have here and then the Figma one being here. So you can see like, even with this, there's quite a bit of variation that you can get to it. And so we were like, man, like which company would we like daydream collabing with, you know? Like even back in like 2017 or whatever, when I was doing my first UI UX designs for my education software, I was using Figma for that, So it was like, man, like that company, wow. Like, it's like has a great brand, great community, great product. Like, that would be like the dream to do it with, Yeah. And so, I like me being like the marketing guy behind it.
Yeah, just do a render.
I'm like Mattia, like just do a render, like, like just do one, So he comes up with like, this idea to do like this great, like this kind of pixelated gradient kind of color on it.
Yeah, picking up from their like company brand color and also with the logo. So we just custom tailored for like their brand identity. Mm-hmm. And we just do like a simple animation with that was floating, revealing like the final one. I also have like
I got that one here. Yeah, I got also signed by like a bunch of people at Config, including Dylan Field, the CEO of Figma.
Cool. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a trophy.
Yeah.
It's literally our trophy. So okay, you can see that we also changed it to make it a little more exclusive. We also like changed the color of the weight, making like a custom gray with a custom silk. So yeah, we tried. So their like brand tagline was "Nothing great is made alone" back in the time.
Yeah.
So we tried.
Together. So I was like, man, like that seems like a really great thing to riff on, And so I was like, what if we did like a little mini guerrilla marketing campaign that was like around collabing with Figma, but along their idea of like nothing great is made alone. So why don't we make this together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at the time, like it was really just Mattia and I in the company. The company is still really small. But like now on like the monthly payroll, we got 10 people. Like customer service, developers.
Customer service.
We got 3 customer service people. But all to say, like, we wanted to make something with Figma. And so we were like, okay, like, let's use our renders where we can really show them exactly what it's going to look like. And we just posted that to Twitter. We were like, nothing great is made alone. So what do you say, Figma? And I tagged Figma in it.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that one of the product managers at Figma, so his name's Robert Bai, great guy, just like a total pleasure to work with. He's like, dude, I work at Figma. And he's like, I think like this would be super awesome because like we've been kind of like, everyone's been kind of like talking about like how it'd be really cool if one day Figma had a physical hardware product, but like being a SaaS company, it's not really something that they do, like just in general, SaaS companies don't go from software as a service to now hardware.
Yeah.
Especially a company like Figma where it's really big, there's red tape with doing that kind of stuff. It's like, we got to really think it through and all this stuff. And so we get some intros. We actually end up on a Zoom call with the creative director at Figma. He literally just sent us a DM, let's talk. And we're like freaking out at this time, right? We're like freaking out. We get on this call and then nothing ends up happening after that. It was just like, the Adobe acquisition came in and it was like, we were just like so far back burnered. It was like,
yeah, it's not gonna happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
We tried.
So we like kind of forgot about it for like a year and a half where like we had pitched them on this idea. We actually were so willing to do this product with them and like so wanted to do this product with them. We actually designed the prototype. Like it was actually this one. So there's slight differences to it. So we actually designed the prototype. I don't think we had the colored keycaps at the time. No, we didn't have the colored
keycaps. That's the black one. But we made the PCB.
The PCB
in white.
And we sent it to them.
Oh yeah, we give like the full transparent set.
Yeah, so we sent it to them thinking like, okay, maybe that'll like spark it, and nothing. They acknowledged it and they liked it.
Yeah. But
nothing. It was like too far back on the thing. So we were just like, oh man, I was like not gonna go through. And then it was like Figma was doing like some promo with like their merch store, right? Which they actually donate 100% of the proceeds to reforestation, which I find super cool. And they were doing a merch thing and I went into my Discord to like kind of like fire them up. I'm like, guys, like let's like show Figma some like work louder love, and like go and hype up their merch store. And we went and did that, but like I guess like they didn't really like that we were like hyping it up like that or whatever.
Please.
But funny enough, it was like that perfect thing of where it kind of like reminded some people higher up at Figma that we existed, and they were like, "Oh, but we're not actually doing anything for these next 2 months. Like, let's reach out to them." And then like, where was it? It was like end of October 2022.
Yeah.
We just get like a DM, and they're like, yeah, we're interested. So like, how fast can you do all this? And we're like thinking like, okay, like
a couple of months.
Oh, maybe
like 3 months.
Yeah, 3 months. We'll get you like good prototypes. We'll do like a box and all that stuff for you guys.
Yeah.
And they're like, and we're like, yeah, that's just for like the product development, and then we'll need like another like 2.5 months, like do like the marketing stuff.
Maybe 6 years, like
yeah,
6 months. Sorry.
6 months, and then they're like, cool. Can you do it in 2? We're like,
of course.
When Figma asks you, can you do it in 2? You say yes.
Yes, you cannot say nothing else. Yeah, that's okay. We're gonna do that in 2.
Yeah. And so like we were like scrambling and like to make it, even though it's just a reskin of this product, like to get the right color combinations, like
of all the keycaps.
Like Mattia, grab some of the colorways here.
I can grab literally like
we have a box, and like each one of these samples can take.
We have 3 boxes.
Like at least 2 weeks to get one of these, even if you order multiple, whatever. So we were like, oh my god, there's like 6 different colors, Pantone colors that we need to do with this. Like,
you also like the kind of
finish,
whatever. So yeah.
So we were like, oh my god, like we gotta pray that like our manufacturer like nails these colors and that they all like are in the right like range of hues and stuff, so they all like fit together cohesively. Because they might get one color right, but then the other one's like, that's too green or too blue. Like,
so because on render they feels always different from the reality. So
right.
So like we rushed the development of that project, and we like even made them like
the box,
like this custom box, right, with like the graphics, and like they were insistent that they're like, if we're gonna announce this, you have to like physically give us the finished
The
product.
finisher, not just like a demo.
Yeah, and like, man, manufacturers give you a hard time as a small company to do like a finished product prototype, you know? And so we were like stressing, we were telling our manufacturers like, no, like don't clown around. Like we're actually very serious about this. Like, please help us make this deadline, you know? And so they did, and they loved it. But then we were left with the aspect of like, okay, like now how do we market this thing?
Yeah.
Right? Like, so Figma was there, but like, you know, Figma's got a lot of pots on the stove, so to speak, right? Like they're not going to just dedicate graphic designers and 3D modelers to us. Like they gave us some graphic designers to help with the box to make it sure, you know, that it was on their branding. They were doing a little bit of new brand update. So they wanted to like make sure like those elements were on brand. But then we were like, oh man, like how are we gonna bring this whole thing to life and like put on this like agency level production for the marketing? And then that's when Ben Fritz, the creator of the Knob 1 keyboard, comes in. So Mattia is really proficient now at industrial design. But motion design is completely different, right? Like it's different software. It's
different approach, completely different approach.
It's like, you know, you can make something beautiful and have it do motion stuff, but it might not be like machine ready. Like might not be able to actually make it at an industrial level, right? So like Mattia was specialized in making it, but not necessarily showcasing it all fancy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like to that point we had done some motion stuff, but it was like really basic.
Yeah.
Really
we did
basic
something at home.
Yeah.
Homemade.
You know, and like we did like our own promo for the Nomad originally, and like that went
also
really
for
well.
the micro at the beginning.
Also for the micro, but you know, we needed something really eye-catching for Figma, you know? And I was talking with Ben about like making, you know, his keyboard, the Knob 1, and he was like, yeah, I don't know how to make it. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to cut you a deal here. Like, let's help each other. Like, I'm going to help you make this thing. I'll give you a sweetheart deal. We'll split the profit on that. But in return, I would need your help doing renders.
Yeah.
Like, not only are you going to render all the animations and stuff for your products, but like, I'll give you a really good deal on the profit of this if you can help render our products as well. Because, you know, Ben he's all self-taught, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, he taught himself during COVID. And I'm like, man, like, we cannot afford talent like that. You know, like,
very good. Yeah.
we just, like, people would pay, you know, anywhere from 20 to 50 grand for a really nice render sequence and all that. We can't afford that. You know, and like all the money that we were going to make from the collab was going to be from product sales, right? So it was like, okay, well, we don't really have a lot of cash to just go out of pocket on this animation. So I told Ben, I'm like, we'll do all this for you if you help us with this animation. And he just absolutely crushed it. Like, you know, I was involved in like the storyboarding process along with, you know, a bunch of people at Figma. But Ben like was the one that like really rendered it all out. We hired a Montreal sound designer, Joseph Sims, I believe his last name is. And Joseph is just fantastic with the sound design. Like everything is like super bespoke, really fun. Like I think we did 2 revisions for the sound. Like that's how good Joseph was.
Yeah.
And yeah, we delivered it to Figma and they just absolutely loved it. And then like from there, like the rest is history. Like we like sold out like pretty much like overnight with that thing. We opened the pre-orders in December 12th, 2022.
Yeah.
And then we shipped, we like manufactured and then shipped the product May, like early May.
Yeah, it was early May.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, right in time for the config.
Right in time for config too. So like that was wild. And like, you know, like we were kind of bummed about the fact that like we needed to wait so long to get that collab. Like we were like, oh, like at the time, like, oh, we didn't get that collab. Like it was never going to happen.
Yeah.
But you know, sometimes like don't rush things, you know, just, you know, like, you know, earn your stars, so to speak, you know, like get that experience. You know, sometimes it's just not the right time. And like, you need to be able to recognize that, you know, like even this year, you know, like we had a big retailer in Australia that wanted to carry our products.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm like, it's not quite ready for like the mass market. You know, like the everyday normal consumer. I'm like, let's tweak it, let's polish our software, get it really, really right so that when we deliver it, it's a home run.
Yeah.
You know? And like that's what we did with the Creator Micro, and people loved it.
Yeah.
You know? But had we gotten this collab a year and a half earlier, when we didn't have our manufacturing, like I was still building them in my parents' spare bedroom when we reached out to Figma. Like, thank God we didn't get the collab then. Like, we would have not been able to handle the volume.
No, absolutely.
You know? And then on top of that, our packaging was all different. You know, like we didn't have like this fancy box style, you know, vented box style packaging like
we
that.
Like using like the vacuum sealant system.
We were still vacuum sealing it. And it's not Figma level quality.
No.
Right? You know, so like, sometimes it just works out, you know, like sometimes you don't get an opportunity when you want it. Just look at the bright side and say like, you know, it just gives me more time to like figure out my manufacturing, figure out like my product design, figure out my software, whatever it is. And then when that opportunity comes, you're ready to strike. And we, you know, if we had that 2 month timeline, a year and a half earlier, we would have not been able to meet it.
Oh, no, absolutely.
No. And so because we had that experience at that point, we were able to say all of our manufacturers are in line. Boom. Here's the concept. Let's refine it a little bit. Yeah. And we got it to them. I think the finished prototype came December 1st, and
we were able to
give it to them for December 12th for the pre-order launch.
I think this really helps put into context how much work actually goes behind the scenes of every product. I mean, you know, if you're a consumer of a keyboard, you might think it's a pretty simple device.
Yeah,
It's keys.
Yeah,
it's like,
it's key. You press, they do something.
Press A and A appears on your screen, right?
Yeah.
But like the level of detail required for even just the renders, the sound, the manufacturing, the materials, the colors, the shipping, managing the entire process, it's a lot of work.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, I mean, just to hear you guys go through like multiple months to go from like a render to a finished product. It's like, you know, this is like a real heavy lift to get each product out the door. Do you have like a framework now that you use to kind of systematize these things? Like as you introduce new products, are you on a pretty good cadence, or do you find that it's still like every new product presents its own set of unique challenges, and each one you kind of have to play whack-a-mole, you know, solving each problem?
Well, yeah, I can say that we are still pretty young. I mean, we, not considering the knob, actually, if we just talk about like the Worklouder lineup, we have like the Creator and the Nomad. We can just say that we have two products, like two product lineup. And also, just to let you know, if you look at the Creator board, it's just like a planar extrusion, because I wasn't able to model back in the day. So I was thinking, okay, I can design Illustrator like a trace, and on Rhino I can extrude it. I can literally select the say extruder. I got like a 3D shape. Oh wow, I got a 3D shape. How can I make that for real? I can CNC. Okay, so that was the approach of the Creator. But once we decide to go inside, like to go through the Nomad, Nomad is complete. There is two different world universe between like the two products.
Yeah,
because PCB still the PCB, but all the approach about we took our knowledge about CNC to go through like metal, like a metal chassis to screw everything on. But we had to face like a large scale, so we cannot large scale a CNC manufacturer. You have to go through something like accessible, that's molding. So that's why we started like we had zero knowledge there for molding, and we started with zero knowledge here for molding. We were lucky enough to find like a nice shape to model like a nice shape that we really like, to put everything inside that we were looking to put inside. Even if we back in the days it's like a play Lego. You can put them together, but this Lego is for adult. You have also to connect all the stuff after, so it's not just like placing stuff on top.
So we leaned on our community for that.
Yeah.
So Ben, we found a part of our community to help with our renders. We met a guy, his name's Sasha.
Yeah, Sasha.
And like he worked at, where is it? Black & Decker?
Oh yeah, he was working for like a hard tool company.
Yeah.
And we were like together, like I know how to model, but he know how to model for that specific kind of material, like for plastic. And we went through all the structure ribs together to understand like how is the tension of the plastic, like the shrinkage, and that more like technical stuff. So.
Because like on our first product over here, the creator board, you can see hallmarks of like bad design. Like, you know, to a regular consumer, they won't see this, right? Which is one of the reasons why I personally as a founder, I'm like, you know, don't stress so much about the product being perfect, because most people, it's like they'll barely notice that. Yeah. Or like, you know, it's like somebody who's playing piano and they miss a couple notes. If they stop, everyone's going to notice. If they don't stop, everyone's going to say, wow, you played a really nice piece. You know, and then you as the artist will be like, oh, I missed this note and I missed that note. You know, like for instance, these dials, Mattia, when he made the mold design for this, had no idea how to make a mold.
No, yeah.
You know, so like
the 3D model, so make it.
So, you know, like, so we didn't know at that time, like, you can't have plastic be infinitely thick in any area. Like, if you want it to like come out looking even, it needs to be like properly sized. It needs to have certain ribs. It needs to have draft angles, you know? So like, for instance, on this one, you can see there's ever so slightly a little dimple on the top, which shows that the plastic was too thick in that area. And so when it came out of the mold,
the shrinkage is like
it cooled at a different rate.
Yeah,
right.
It was too hot in the center, but the edges cooled off. So the edges solidified, but
the
middle was still a little too hot, and it just sinks a little bit. So like an example of like, you know, poor craftsmanship in that respect, you know, we were able to tweak the design of the knobs, and we're able to fix that, you know, and you can also fix that kind of stuff to some degree by playing with like the actual injection settings, the temperatures.
You can tune a little the machine to get like a better refined model.
Yeah.
But for this product, we didn't have the luxury of being able to hide. You know, like we really needed
is the main component is transparent. So you're gonna start like making stuffs like structural design elements to not be only structural, to be also like a part of the design.
Right.
To be like part of the design language, and to give that extra like detail that is gonna compose your product.
Like for instance, the ribs along the front here, if you look closely, the actual design of those ribs change. It's not like a regular like aesthetic thing for those ribs changing. It's actually done so to absorb more strain. So these particular ribs are better at absorbing flexure than these ones over here. Essentially, they're built in like a V to like take more pressure if you are hitting it or if you knock it.
Yeah, because the shell of the keyboard is literally like just like a super thin part of plastic.
Like
it's very flexible.
We use polycarbonate because it's better and stronger than ABS in this context. Yes. Plus, polycarbonate can be transparent. Right? So we wanted to be able to have one mold to make multiple colorways. But that's kind of like we were pushing the boundaries a little bit there, because if really when you change materials, you should be having a different mold for that material. To compensate for those particular properties of the mold. So like for instance, you know, when we designed it for polycarbonate, but when you want to get it opaque, you have to add in
any kind of like, I don't remember like the proper name is like a pigment. Sorry, that's why like pigment. Maybe it's white. You go like a titanium powder to give like the matte effect.
And that changes the properties of the material. So like we were having assembly issues and we couldn't understand. We're like, why is the assembly? And then we're like, oh my god, we had one mold to do both transparent and
color and
opaque. And the differences in that
is the recipe. It's literally the recipe. So you can take like the same recipe for making a cake. You just tweak maybe the sugar or maybe like the milk. It's the same recipe. It's also the same, the same pan or mold, but the result is gonna be different.
And so like we were getting tiny flexing of the case, which was putting tension on the dials.
Yeah.
So they weren't turning properly. So, and like, there's no like bug report telling you, oh yeah, your thing here is a little too tight. Like you actually have to like look
and be there.
Bend it, try to see, okay, this is maybe what's doing it. Let me go like fix it, tweak it. And every time you have to tweak a mold, it can take, like at least a month to do. And you don't want to be tweaking your mold all the time.
Yeah. And plus you have to find out the problem, because if for the manufacturer, the part is good. The manufacturer did the molded part, you ship to you, you look at the part, you say, oh, that's good. There's no scratches. Everything looks good. You assemble yourself. So sometimes it's a prototype. So prototypes still have different tolerances compared to the final one. So for you, everything is okay. Maybe you feel that it's scratching, but maybe it's because you maybe did something in the meantime. And but the problem is when you hit the production and they start like making thousands of parts, and they are like, they also like, the different maybe they tweak the temperature, they're gonna make a problem on the assembly.
You don't know if it's because of a mistake we made or they.
It's very difficult to add.
And so you mix that in with the fact that we, for instance, for the Nomad, we did a Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah.
And we said, okay, we're planning on shipping. What was it? January. The original date was January 2024. Or like Q1 2024.
Q1,
yeah. That's when we set. In Kickstarter, you had to set a specific month, so we put January, but it was really like Q1 2024. And the difficulty is like you'll come into problems and you won't know what that problem is, but then like backers will be like, well, what's the problem? It's like almost like an expectation of you should always know what the problem is, but like sometimes we know something doesn't work, but we don't know what the problem is, and it's like. It's very hard to communicate that without just it totally sounding like BS all the time. Like it's like, okay, well, we're working on this. Well, you were working on that last month. Why isn't it fixed this month? It's like people just think there's this linear path of like,
trouble,
fixing it. It's like, people don't understand like there's real risk in the sense that like this thing might actually not come to fruition or come to reality because we don't actually know
how to fix
it or how to do this, or like we're actually learning as we go, right? And so like I think that's something that in a weird way like makes us really different from a lot of companies is like we build products that we don't know how to make.
Absolutely. So ironically we do like what a normal user do and post on Behance for like the sequel of having make like a super gorgeous design. But we don't use Behance. We use like a manufacturer line and put out on the market.
We use Shopify as our Behance.
Shopify is our Behance.
Okay, I want to close this off by talking about the future of keyboards, and we can take that in two directions. The first is I want to understand what the future of your product lineup looks like, but the second is I also want to understand what is the future use case for keyboards when we now have things like the Apple Vision Pro and we have all these Neuralink transmitters, and we have devices that allow us to manipulate things digitally without using our fingers. What will keyboards look like in the future, and then what will your product lineup look like in the future?
So, do you want me to handle the product line stuff so you don't slip any spoilers?
That's my I gotta stay like.
So
we have some spoilers. So
we got some spoilers off camera, but it's just for Kevin. So like I'll start with what our future product lines might look like. And then I'll talk about like the future of like input devices, how I see it. So our product line, we're always taking customer feedback where I read every single comment. Like, Tim, if you're out there, I saw your comment. You wrote something not so nice to us.
I think.
No, but for real, like I read all the comments and like, and like I did back in 2020, like trying to understand who these people were, I will go and stalk people's profiles to this day to make sure that I'm not making assumptions about who our current set of customers are, because that can evolve over time without you really realizing. And it's like you're kind of like a fish in the ocean kind of thing. Like, do you even know the oceans around you, right? So like I always like try to stick my head above water and look around to see like, am I really doing this the way that our customers want us to be doing it. So, like we went and took a ton of feedback on the Nomad and implemented a lot of that feedback straight into the Knob One keyboard. So like switch stability,
Also, like a lot of
electronic change for battery life optimization, connectivity, like literally everything that we learned about the Nomad,
we bring it here.
We put it into the Knob. Incidentally, it resulted in us having to delay the shipment of that. But at the end of the day, customers are great because they're willing to support new ideas. But at the end of the day, you, as a business owner, as an operator, you can't let consumers' desire for wanting something fast influence too much your desire or your really responsibility to create a good product for them, right? Like they will complain about it being too slow, about it costing too much and being all this, but I assure you they will complain more if it's a bad product.
Yeah.
So, so we wanted to take all of the learnings from that and put it into the new one because Mattia and I, we have we maintain this philosophy with our products that we always want to be putting out a better product than our last one. That is our goal. Our goal is not to put out a perfect product because we'll never put out a perfect product.
It's pretty hard.
It'll take us forever to do that because perfect's never done, in other words. So what we can commit to is always putting out a better product than our last, just not making the same mistakes twice. Right. And by virtue of that, it'll be like an asymptote, right? It'll approach perfection, right? And at one point, you'll reach something like, let's say Apple, for instance, where they've so optimized their products that it feels like a perfect product to many people.
Yeah.
And so that's the philosophy that we hold with all of our products and our product lines. So, we're listening to people about price, I'll give a little spoiler here. We're thinking of and working on how we can use 3D printing in our manufacturing
with our design system
to decrease the cost, but also trying to say like how can we lean into the aesthetics of 3D printing that doesn't shy away from the fact that it was 3D printed, but like really celebrates the fact that, hey, look at all these different versions that we can create without creating a ton of waste. We can test new products, give them to you cheaper because it's 3D printed after all. And move forward like that. So we're considering all of that, the different features people want and price point as well, because everyone knows the economy sucks right now. So that's about the product line. Future input devices, I think defaults are a really hard thing to beat. And what I mean by that is, there's a reason why we had a difficult adoption with the creator board for the ortholinear layout, because everyone learns how to type on a staggered keyboard, right? So I think until the really big players like Apple, Meta, potentially even some third unknown, company, like Logitech, comes out with something really novel, I think the default will actually remain the QWERTY keyboard, even though it's not the most efficient input device. And there's been tons of devices proving how you can type faster with chords or split keyboards, more ergonomic for you. I think the defaults are extremely powerful. And so the QWERTY keyboard is something that I envision staying until there's like this,
very like digital
10x change in productivity or in usage. Ease of use. I think the innovation will really come from ease of use and not productivity. It'll be ease of use. How can I communicate faster? Because language is limiting, especially when you have to type it one letter at a time.
Right.
So I think the true innovation will come from the user experience, the UX, rather than the actual hardware itself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This was awesome. Thank you guys for taking the time to walk me through all the products, and it really shows all the work you put into building them. Something I think a lot of customers might not appreciate is just like every single little detail has to be thought through, has to be worked on, you got to get a manufacturer to do it. You got to go through a bunch of samples. Like there's a lot that goes into these products, and they ended up looking great. I mean, every single one just looks amazing. So great work for you guys. I want to finish off with just one more final rapid fire question. Is there any product in your lives that you think is extraordinary you want to give a shout out to?
It's a hard question.
Mine's a little cliche, but no. It's not cliche in the sense that it's one of my products. It's a little obvious. I think the current iPhones are just fantastic.
No, buddy, I think you were saying about the creator.
No, I'm not gonna. Everyone knows I love my products. I'm not gonna say it. But honestly, I think like I think the best products are the ones that like truly understand the user experience. And I think the iPhone, especially like small features like AirDrop, like being able to copy something from your phone and paste it to your computer, that kind of stuff. It's like really small things that are just really awesome in a daily life workflow that I think like that's an extraordinary product. Something that has so much impact. Like you can't leave from your many people won't leave from their iPhone just because they can't AirDrop stuff, you know?
Right.
So I think the iPhone deserves it.
Mattia?
Okay. I'm pretty like old school. I will say literally, it seems pretty stupid. I'm gonna say like paper and a good pencil.
Yeah.
Because even if I stay a lot, primarily like digital for everything that I'm doing, we also made like metaverse stuff. So kind of digital. I still like very more easy for me to go through like a very condensed space to put inside like my thought and my ideas. So I will say that it's gonna be one, even like a big pencil and a good like piece of good paper. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Can I throw in a little thank you to everyone?
Sure, yeah.
Because honestly, like we wouldn't, Mattia and I wouldn't be here without the support of people like you that are interested in niche products and supporting, you know, two crazy guys making stuff. Like Mattia's literally moving from Italy to Canada because of Work Louder.
And
because of you guys.
Yes.
So
thank you very much, guys.
Yeah, honestly, guys, thank you for supporting like two crazy guys making stuff on the internet. Really means a lot to us.